There's something you should know about working night shifts, especially in isolated places. The darkness has a way of revealing things, twisting reality, and pulling at the threads of your sanity. I thought it would just be another boring job. Clock in, clock out, and earn a paycheck. But then I saw the rules that made no sense. Rules that, if broken, came with consequences far beyond a simple reprimand. And now, trapped in the cold glow of flickering fluorescent lights, I'm beginning to understand. Some rules aren't just guidelines, they're survival. The wind howled against the thin, glass walls of the gas station, a low, mournful wail that seemed to pierce the silence of the deserted highway. The cold, sterile light overhead flickered, casting shadows that danced erratically across the narrow aisles. I'd only just started my night shift, the first of what was supposed to be an easy job. Clean the shelves, check the register, and wait for the rare, passing traveler to fill up. The gas station stood alone, miles away from the nearest town, a solitary outpost on a stretch of forgotten road. The manager, a grizzled man with a scarred face and a perpetually cold stare, handed me a yellowed piece of paper just before leaving. It was neatly typed, but the edges were frayed, as though it had been handled 1,000 times. Read it, memorize it, follow it, he said, his voice devoid of any warmth. I unfolded the paper and read the list of rules. 1. Lock the front door at 11 p.m. sharp. Do not open it for anyone, no matter what they say. 2. If you see a black car in the parking lot, do not approach it. Do not look directly at it. 3. The phone may ring with a single, long tone. If it does, do not answer. It is not for you. 4. If you hear scratching at the back door, ignore it. Never investigate. 5. Every hour, check the security monitor. If any camera is blank, turn off the main lights for exactly 1 minute. No more, no less. 6. At 3 a.m., you must take the key from the drawer and open the supply closet. Do not look directly inside. Close it within 30 seconds. 7. If a man wearing a raincoat asks for the special pump, tell him it is out of service. Do not engage him further. I looked up at the manager, waiting for some kind of explanation. He simply nodded. Just follow the rules. You'll be fine. And with that, he left, the bell above the door jingling behind him. The first hour was uneventful. A single car pulled up, the driver, an elderly woman, filled her tank and left without stepping inside. The clock ticked with an agonizing slowness, and I busied myself with cleaning, organizing the snacks, and checking my phone. But then, at exactly 11 p.m., the wind seemed to grow louder, and a deep, uneasy chill settled over the station. I remember the first rule: lock the front door. I turned the key, hearing the deadbolt slide into place. A sense of security washed over me, but it was fleeting. I checked the cameras, 6 in total. The feed was mostly clear, each camera showing a different angle of the station. The parking lot was empty. The rear alley was dark, the storage area still. 12:05 a.m. A loud, single ring echoed from the ancient phone on the counter. A long, shrill tone that seemed to vibrate the walls. My hand instinctively reached for it, but I stopped myself, the third rule burning in my mind. I watched the phone, its metallic surface catching the dim light, but it remained silent after that single ring. 12:30 a.m. The scratching started, a faint, persistent scrape against the metal of the back door. I froze, my heart hammering. It was soft at first, but it grew louder more desperate, like claws raking against steel. I tried to focus on anything else: the dull hum of the refrigerators, the quiet rustle of the wind. The scratching continued, relentless. I didn't investigate. 1 a.m. I checked the cameras again. 5 were clear, but the 6th, overlooking the gas pumps, was a blank, gray static. My heart skipped a beat. The 5th rule. I swallowed hard and rushed to the switch by the counter. I killed the main lights, plunging the store into a darkness so complete it felt suffocating. My eyes strained against the pitch black, and for a moment, I thought I heard something, a faint, slithering movement somewhere in the darkness. I counted silently. 1, 2, 3. My pulse raced, the seconds feeling like hours. Finally, at 60, I flipped the lights back on. The store flickered back to life, the hum of electricity returning. I checked the monitor. The 6 camera was back, the gray static replaced by a clear, still image of the gas pumps. 2 a.m. A figure appeared at the door. A man tall, his face hidden beneath the hood of a raincoat. He raised a hand, knocking gently against the glass. His voice was muffled, distorted by the thick glass and the howling wind. "Hey, I need to use the special pump." I felt a chill creep down my spine. Rule 7. I approached the door, staying a few feet away. "Sorry, it's out of service," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. The man didn't move for a long moment. His face was a shadow beneath the hood. Then, without another word, he turned and walked into the darkness, disappearing beyond the reach of the station's lights. The hours dragged on, the cold growing sharper, the wind more violent. I found myself staring at the clock, watching the minutes crawl toward 3 a.m. My chest tightened with each tick, a sense of dread clawing at me. Finally, the clock struck 3 o'clock. My hands were trembling as I opened a drawer and took out a small, rusted key. The supply closet was in the back, a narrow door wedged between the restrooms. My fingers were slick with sweat as I fit the key into the lock. I opened it, the darkness inside thick and oppressive. I averted my gaze, counting softly under my breath. 1, 2, 3. I dare not look directly inside, but I heard it, a faint, wet sound like something shifting, something breathing. 28, 29, 30. I slammed the door shut, locking it quickly. My heart was a drum in my chest, but I had done it. I had followed the rules. But as I leaned against the wall, trying to calm my breathing, I heard it again, the faint, rhythmic scratching at the back door, louder, closer, like it was inside. I turned, eyes wide, as the lights flickered, and then they went out. Darkness swallowed the gas station, an oppressive, suffocating void that seemed to press against my chest, stealing the air from my lungs. My fingers fumbled in the pitch black, searching for the light switch, but they trembled too much, slipping over the cold plastic without finding the grip. The scratching sound, the one I thought had come from outside, was closer now, impossibly close. Then, a sharp click echoed, and the lights flickered back on. But the relief was fleeting. I wasn't alone. A figure stood at the far end of the aisle, half hidden in the shadow of the dim overhead lights. Tall and gaunt, its back was turned to me, its head tilted at an unnatural angle, like a broken doll. I felt a cold sweat break across my forehead, my body frozen as if caught in a nightmare. I didn't move. I didn't breathe. The figure twitched, a slow, jerking movement, and then it took a single step forward, its bare feet scraping against the tiled floor. My mind screamed to me to run, but my legs were locked in place. It stepped again, the thin, sickly arm twitching with each movement. Then I remembered the rules I had to follow. The cameras. I forced myself to look at the monitor screen behind the counter. 5 feeds were clear, but the 6th, again, static. But this time, the static wasn't gray. It pulsed a sickly, reddish black, like a wounded, beating heart. I had to turn off the lights for 1 minute. No more, no less. My hand shot out, gripping the switch, but the figure seemed to sense it. Its head twisted with a sickening crack, and I saw its face. Pale, featureless, a smooth expanse of flesh where eyes, a nose, and a mouth should have been. My stomach lurched. I slammed the switch down. Darkness again. The darkness pressed closer, and in that black void, I heard it. Wet, dragging footsteps, slow and deliberate, like something was feeling its way toward me. 1, 2. I counted, my voice barely a whisper over the sound of the thing approaching. 3, 4. Its breath was a raspy, hollow wheeze, growing louder with each step. 57, 58. My fingers shook violently. I had to get it right. 60. I threw the switch. The light returned, a blinding flash that seemed almost too bright. I blinked, my vision clearing, and looked around. The figure was gone. The aisles were empty. The monitor was clear, all 6 feeds normal. But I knew better. I knew the thing was still somewhere, hiding just beyond the reach of the light. I stumbled back behind the counter, wiping the cold sweat from my brow. My phone was in my pocket. I could call for help, but who would believe me? Who would drive all the way out here, to a gas station cursed by rules and shadowed by something far worse? The clock read 3:45 a.m. I had an hour and 15 minutes left. I just needed to survive until sunrise. Just follow the rules, I told myself. Stick to the rules. A faint tapping echoed from the front door. I froze. My eyes darted to the glass. Another figure, but this one was different. A woman, dressed in a soaking wet, torn dress. Her hair clung to her face in tangled, dark strands, her eyes wide, pleading. She knocked again, her lips moving, but I couldn't hear her voice. She stepped closer, pressing her face against the glass. Her mouth moved faster now, silent words of desperation, her hand smearing something dark and wet against the door. Blood. I recoiled, my mind racing. The rules, the rules. The door was locked. I wasn't supposed to open it, no matter what. But she was terrified. What if she was in real danger? What if? Please. Her voice finally broke through, a muffled, hoarse whisper. Let me in, it's out here. It's out here. My hand tightened on the counter. Don't open it. Don't open it. But the sound of her voice, raw with terror, clawed at me. I leaned forward, struggling with the choice. The clock ticked, a maddening reminder of the seconds slipping by. Then, the woman's voice changed, a low, guttural growl slipping through her desperate whispers. I can see you. I can see you hiding. Her face twisted, the pale skin darkening, her eyes sinking into shadowed hollows. Let me in, please. Let me in, please. Let me in. She repeated the words over and over, a sing-song chant that grated against my ears. I stumbled back, slamming my hands over my ears, but the voice echoed in my head. I forced myself to focus on the rules. I couldn't let her in. I couldn't even look at her. I ducked behind the counter, curling into a ball, the chant growing louder, the glass vibrating with each pounding knock. And then, Silence. I waited, breathless, until I was sure it was over. I peeked over the counter. The glass was clean, no blood, no woman. Just the dark, empty highway stretching into the void. 4:10 a.m. The rules. Just follow the rules. I checked the cameras. 6 feeds. All clear. But I wasn't stupid. I knew they didn't show everything. They were a comfort, a false sense of security. I remember the phone, the long, single ring from earlier. It hadn't rung again. Yet, I busied myself restocking the shelves, anything to keep my mind off the darkness outside. But as I placed a bag of chips on the rack, I noticed something, muddy footprints leading from the back door to the counter. My blood ran cold. They were small, barefoot, like a child's. But they ended abruptly, vanishing halfway through the store. My hands trembled as I moved back behind the counter. I tried to breathe, but the air was thick, suffocating. The clock was a cruel reminder of time, moving painfully slow. 4:30 a.m. I checked the drawer again, making sure the supply closet key was still there. It was, but something else was in the drawer, another piece of paper, yellowed, the same type as the list of rules. But this one was handwritten, the letters erratic, messy. You're not alone. You never were. Don't trust the cameras. I stared at it, the words burning into my mind. My pulse pounded in my ears. I looked at the cameras again, 6 feeds. But now I noticed something strange. The camera overlooking the gas pumps, it showed a car. A black car. But I hadn't seen it pull in. I hadn't heard an engine. Rule 2. If you see a black car, don't approach it. Don't look directly at it. But I was already staring. The longer I looked, the more something shifted. A dark shape in the driver's seat. A shape that turned, and even from a monitor, I could feel it looking back at me. I turned away, feeling bile rise in my throat. I had to survive. Just survive until sunrise. But then the phone rang, a single long, piercing tone. And this time, I wasn't sure I could ignore it. The phone's shrill, endless ring echoed through the gas station, slicing through the thick silence. I stared at it, paralyzed, the metallic sheen of the old rotary phone almost mocking me. It rang once a long, piercing tone, just like the rule had warned. The rule I was supposed to follow, do not answer. It is not for you. But this time, something was different. The screen of the security monitor flickered again, the camera on the gas pumps now shrouded in a swirling, static blur. And through that static, the shape in the black car became clearer. Something tall, hunched, its silhouette contorting, twisting. I tore my gaze away, but the phone kept ringing. I couldn't stand it. My hand shot out before I could stop myself, gripping the cold, dusty receiver. My pulse thundered in my ears. "Hello," I whispered, breathless. Silence. Only the faint crackle of a dead line, the hum of something distant, and then a voice. "You shouldn't have answered." A chill ran down my spine, the whisper sharp and hollow, like the voice of someone who had long forgotten how to speak. I dropped the phone, stumbling backward, but the voice continued, pouring out of the receiver, louder and louder. "I see you. I see you. I see you." The lights above flickered violently, the store plunging in and out of darkness. I kicked the phone away, its coiled cord twisting like a snake, but the voice didn't stop. It filled the room, rising in a dreadful, guttural wail. "I see you." I grabbed the light switch, flicking it off and on, desperate for anything to drown out that voice. And then, as suddenly as it began, the voice stopped. Silence, oppressive and thick. The phone lay still on the floor, the cord a tangled mess. My hands shook so violently I could barely breathe. The monitor screen flashed. The static cleared. The black car was gone. I should have felt relieved, but I didn't. Because as I stared at the screen, I saw something else. A new message, scrawled across the wall of the gas station, just outside the window. You broke the rule. My chest tightened. A sick, heavy dread settled in my stomach. What had I done? What had I just invited in? The lights steadied, but they seemed dimmer now. The store cloaked in a pale, sickly glow. I glanced at the clock. 5 a.m. One more hour. 1 hour to survive whatever I had just awakened. I stepped cautiously around the counter, peering out the window. Nothing but darkness. The empty highway stretching into the abyss. But I knew better. I knew something was watching. A loud, wet thud echoed from the back of the store. I spun around, my heart pounding. The supply closet, the door I had locked with a rusted key, was now slightly ajar. A slow, steady drip echoed from the darkness beyond the door, pooling in a thick, dark puddle that oozed toward me. My instinct screamed at me to shut it, to lock it again. But as I stepped closer, the stench hit me, a foul, rotting odor that burned my eyes. I gagged, covering my nose, but I couldn't look away. Something shifted inside the darkness of the closet. A low, gurgling moan, like the last breath of a drowning man. My trembling fingers reached for the door handle, but a cold, slimy hand shot out, gripping my wrist. I screamed, yanking back, but its grip was like iron, the wet, decaying flesh pressing against my skin. Another hand followed, then another, 3, 4, clawing, grasping, pulling. I fell backward, kicking wildly, and as I did, I caught a glimpse of it. Something writhing within, a twisted mass of arms and twisted faces, their mouths opening in silent screams. I grabbed the key from the drawer and lunged forward, slamming the door shut, locking it again. The thudding, desperate pounding against the door grew louder, the wood creaking under the force. But held, panting, I stumbled back to the counter. The rules were there to protect me. But I had already broken one, and now the station felt wrong. Warped, twisted, the walls seemed to bend, the aisles stretching endlessly. I looked at the monitor, but the cameras were all blank now, washed in a pale, ghostly glow. I flipped through them, desperate for any sign of normalcy, but only static and shadow stared back at me. Then I saw it, the front door. A figure stood there, its face pressed against the glass, just like the woman from before. But this one, it was me, my own face, twisted and pale, the eyes dark, lifeless. It mouthed the words soundlessly, but I could understand. Let me in. I staggered back, my own reflection smiling at me, its mouth stretching too wide, the skin splitting at the edges. I wanted to run, but there was nowhere to go. I grabbed the emergency flashlight from beneath the counter, its weak beam barely cutting through the darkness. I turned toward the front door again. My reflection was gone. Only the empty highway and the endless darkness beyond. But I didn't feel safe. The lights flickered again. A loud banging erupted from the roof. Heavy footsteps, something dragging across the metal surface. It circled above, moving faster, a grotesque dance that seemed to match the rapid pounding of my heart. And then it stopped. Silence. Nothing but the low hum of the freezers and the distant whistling wind. The phone rang again, a single long tone. I stared at it. The dark receiver twisted on the floor, the cord stretched taut. I couldn't answer it again. I wouldn't, but I couldn't escape the sound. It grew louder, piercing, almost painful. I covered my ears, sinking to the floor, but it was everywhere, a scream that drilled into my mind. Just stop, please, I shouted, desperate. And then, just as suddenly, it stopped. Silence. I glanced at the clock. 5:30 a.m. 30 more minutes. Just 30 more minutes. But the store felt smaller now, the walls seeming to press inward, the shadows in the corners thickening, pulsing. I saw something moving at the edges of my vision, dark, twisted shapes that vanished when I turned to look. I needed to focus. I needed to survive. But the rules were failing me. They were supposed to protect me, but I had broken one. And now, they were unraveling. A loud crash erupted from the back room, the supply closet door. It was splintering, the wood cracking, the lock buckling. Whatever I had locked inside, it was getting out. I grabbed a metal mop handle, my makeshift weapon shaking in my grip. But I knew it was useless. The door bent inward, a sickening, wet moan seeping through the cracks. 5:45 a.m. Just 15 more minutes. 15 minutes of hell. I watched as the door finally shattered, a twisted, oozing mass of limbs and faces pouring out, crawling, slithering toward me, their black, soulless eyes fixed on mine. I backed against the counter, the phone ringing again, the lights stuttering, the walls seeming to breathe. The darkness thickened, clawing at the edges of my vision. And then, just as the writhing horror reached me, the first rays of sunlight pierced through the windows. The lights surged, a blinding white glow that burned away the shadows. The crawling thing let out a shriek, its many faces twisting in agony as it melted into a dark, oily stain on the floor. I stood there, shaking, watching the darkness burn away, the gas station bathe in the warm, golden light of morning. But the phone rang one last time, soft, distant, but clear, and I knew this wasn't over. Sunlight flooded the gas station, spilling through the glass windows like a warm, golden tide. The darkness retreated, its claws shrinking back into the shadowed corners. The twisted, writhing thing that had clawed its way out of the supply closet was gone. Nothing left but a thick, oily smear on the cracked tiles. My hands trembled as I leaned against the counter, my body drained of all strength. I had survived. Somehow, against all logic and reason, I had survived. But the victory felt hollow, my mind a chaotic blur of fear and confusion. The rules, they had failed. I had broken one, and the nightmare had come for me. But why was I still alive? I glanced at the clock, 6:15 a.m. The first streaks of dawn painted the empty highway beyond the glass. The sky a soft gradient of orange and pink. For the first time in hours, the wind was calm. No distant howling, no ghostly whispers, just silence. I wanted to leave. Every part of me screamed to grab my keys, jump in my old, beaten-down car, and drive. Drive until the gas station was a distant, fading memory. But something kept me there. A sick curiosity, a need for answers. The store phone, silent now, lay on the floor, its twisted cord a reminder of the voice I had heard, the voice that had whispered my doom. I forced myself to pick it up, returning it to the cradle. The receiver felt cold, almost lifeless. I needed to talk to someone, anyone. My hand shook as I pulled out my cell phone. A single bar of signal. Good enough. I dialed the manager's number. the grizzled, scarred man who had handed me that cursed list of rules. He picked up on the third ring. "Hello." His voice was calm, steady, too steady. "It's me. Something happened last night. The rules, they didn't work. I saw things. I shouldn't be alive." I stammered, the words spilling out in a panicked rush. There was a long pause on the other end, then a slow, deep sigh. "Did you break any of the rules?" he asked, his voice laced with an odd calm. "Yes, but I didn't mean to." I answered the phone. Silence again, a thick, suffocating silence. "You shouldn't have done that. But if you're still alive, then it's not over. It will come back for you. The station doesn't forget. It never does." "What do you mean? What is this place? Why do these things happen?" "I told you to follow the rules. That's all you needed to know." His voice was cold now, almost mechanical. "Please, you can't just..." The line went dead. I stared at the phone, the dread clawing at me again. But the sunlight, the warm, golden sunlight washed over me. I was safe. For now. I decided I couldn't just leave. Not without answers. Not without understanding what was happening. The gas station was silent now. Almost peaceful, but it felt like a corpse. A hollow shell hiding a festering rot. I stepped outside. The crisp morning air, a welcome contrast to the stifling atmosphere of the store. The parking lot was empty, just cracked asphalt stretching toward the highway. But as I glanced around, something caught my eye. A faint, dark smear on the pavement. The black car, the one from last night. It was gone, but it had left a trail, an oily, dark stain that seemed to pulse faintly in the sunlight. I didn't dare touch it. I circled the building, the cool breeze against my face soothing my frayed nerves. The back door, the one I was never supposed to open, stood silent. The scratches that had haunted me were still there, deep grooves etched into the metal. But now I saw something else, long, thin claw marks that stretched down to the concrete. I tried the handle. Locked. Somehow I was grateful. I returned to the front, leaning against the counter, my eyes tracing the list of rules again. Each word burned into my mind. I needed to know where they came from. Who wrote them? Why? I reached beneath the counter, pulling open the drawer where the rules had been stored. That's when I saw it. A small, dusty envelope, sealed and marked with a single word. Read. My heart raced as I tore it open, a single, typewritten note falling into my hands. "You are not the first. You will not be the last. The rules are there to protect you, but they are not perfect. When they fail, you must remember, sunlight is only an illusion of safety. The darkness is patient. It will return." The words twisted in my mind, the terror clawing at me again. Sunlight, an illusion of safety? But it was daytime. I was supposed to be safe. I had made it. I had. A cold, wet drop splashed against my hand. I looked up. The light above me flickered. No, not flickered. It dimmed like something was pulling the light out of it. Another drop splattered on the counter, thick black. My breath hitched. I stepped back, looking up. The ceiling was damp, a dark, pulsing stain spreading across it. The sunlight outside seemed to fade, a heavy, gray mist creeping in from the edges of the horizon, swallowing the warmth. I backed away, but the mist thickened, rolling over the parking lot, a dense, suffocating fog. It pressed against the windows, the golden light twisting into a sickly, gray hue. The gas station grew darker, the shadows stretching, thickening. The monitor screens buzzed to life, the feeds now showing a pale, ghostly image of the outside. Figures moving in the mist. Dark, twisted shapes slithering, crawling, their faces pressed against the glass. No, this can't be, I whispered, stumbling back. The phone rang again, a single, long tone. But this time, I didn't reach for it. I couldn't. The lights flickered, the temperature plummeting. My breath misted in the air. The supply closet door creaked, the wood bending as though something pressed against it from the inside. The wet, gurgling sound started again, muffled, hungry. I grabbed the metal mop handle, my makeshift weapon from the night before, clutching it like a lifeline. But I knew it wouldn't help. Nothing could help. Then the mist began to seep through the door frame, thick tendrils of gray fog curling along the floor, reaching out like grasping fingers. The scratching at the back door started again, but now it was a frenzy, something desperately trying to claw its way in. The clock on the wall ticked, each second feeling like an eternity. 6:30 a.m. But the sunlight was gone. The sky is swirling, gray void, the mist pressing against the glass, distorting everything. It will come back for you. The manager's voice echoed in my mind. And then I saw them, faces pale and distorted, pressing against the fog-smeared windows, their hollow eyes staring, their mouths stretched wide in silent screams. I stumbled back, the fog curling around my legs, cold and wet. The supply closet door burst open, a thick, twisted arm clawing out, its fingers stretching toward me. I screamed, bolting for the front door, my hands clawing at the lock. But the glass seemed to warp, the handle freezing under my grip. The fog was inside now, twisting around me, and the figures, they were coming through, stepping out of mist, their ghostly forms flickering in and out of sight. You broke the rule. A voice whispered in my ear, a cold breath against my neck. I turned, and they were there, dozens of them, their faces twisted, their eyes empty, their mouths whispering in a chorus. You broke the rule. You broke the rule. I backed against the counter, trapped, the darkness pressing in. The mist thickened, my vision blurring. I was drowning in it, the cold seeping into my bones. My legs gave out, the world spinning, the whispers growing louder. And then, just as my vision faded, the light returned. Harsh, blinding sunlight pierced the mist, the fog retreating, the darkness burning away. I was lying on the cold, cracked tiles of the gas station. The morning sun shone bright through the windows, warm and golden. But I knew the truth now. Sunlight was an illusion. The darkness was only hiding, and it was waiting. The sunlight burned bright through the windows, a warm, golden glow bathing the gas station. But to me, it was a cruel, mocking light, a thin veil hiding the nightmare that lurked beneath. My hands trembled as I sat behind the counter, the faint scent of burning fog still lingering in the air. I wasn't safe, not even now. I stared at the list of rules, the yellowed paper wrinkled and stained with my sweaty fingerprints. The rules were supposed to protect me, but they had failed. Or maybe I had failed them. My phone buzzed. I jumped, the sharp vibration jarring against my frazzled nerves. A message from the manager. Leave the station. Don't look back. Go home. It's over. I should have felt relief. I should have grabbed my keys, jumped in my car, and sped down that highway without a second thought. But something felt wrong, a gnawing dread that clawed at me. I tried to dial the manager's number, but it went straight to voicemail. I looked at the cameras, 6 feeds, all clear. The parking lot was empty, the highway a quiet, endless stretch beneath the rising sun. But the memory of the mist, the twisted faces pressing against the glass, the writhing thing that clawed out of the supply closet, it was burned into my mind. I walked around the store, checking every corner. The closet door was closed again, its surface smooth, the deep claw marks gone. Even the black stain on the floor had vanished. It was as though the nightmare had never happened. But I knew better. I pushed open the front door, stepping out into the warm breeze. The sky was a brilliant blue, a gentle wind rustling the dry grass beyond the station. I forced a laugh, a dry, hollow sound. Maybe I was just losing my mind. Maybe it had all been some twisted hallucination. But as I walked toward my car, I saw something, a single, dark feather lying on the hood, slick with a faint, oily sheen. My stomach twisted. I brushed it off, trying to ignore the way it seemed to twitch as it fell. I climbed into the driver's seat, gripping the steering wheel. I could just leave. I could put this place behind me. But that lingering dread gnawed at me. The list of rules, it had saved me until I broke one. But who had written them? Why do they exist? And if the manager knew about all of this, then what was he hiding? My phone buzzed again. Another message from the manager. Leave. Now. But I didn't. Instead, I reached for the glove compartment, pulling out a small flashlight I kept for emergencies. I stepped out of the car, back toward the gas station. I needed to know. I needed to understand. Because if I didn't, I would never escape. I walked around the building again, my shoes crunching on the gravel. The back door, the one I was never supposed to open, stood silently, the metal surface clean, the claw marks gone. But I noticed something else. A faint, rust-colored stain just beneath the door. Dry blood. My pulse quickened. I tried the handle. Locked. But I remember the rusted key in the drawer. I didn't want to go back inside, but I had to. The front door creaked as I stepped in. The air colder. The familiar scent of stale chips and cleaning products masking the lingering dread. I reached beneath the counter, grabbing the rusted key. As I stepped back out, the sky seemed darker, thick clouds rolling in, a shadow that stretched across the highway. I turned to the back door, my heart pounding. The key slipped easily into the lock, the metal screeching as I turned it. The door swung open, a dark, narrow hallway stretching beyond. A cold, damp breeze rushed out, smelling of wet earth and decay. My flashlight's beam cut through the darkness, the walls slick with a strange, oily residue. I stepped forward, the concrete floor rough beneath my shoes. The hallway twisted, winding deeper, and with each step, the air grew colder, the darkness thicker. I should have turned back. Every instinct screamed at me to run, but I needed to know. I needed answers. The hallway opened into a small, dark room. My flashlight flickered, the beam weak and shaky. The walls were covered in crude, charcoal drawings, figures twisted in agony, their faces stretched, their eyes hollow. In the center of the room, a low, black pit yawned, a thick, oily darkness swirling within. My breath caught. The darkness, it moved. A faint, rhythmic pulse like a slow, beating heart. And I heard it. A faint whisper like a chorus of distant, desperate voices. You shouldn't be here. I turned, and there he was, the manager, standing in the doorway, his face shadowed, his voice flat, emotionless. I told you to leave. What is this place? Where are the rules protecting us from? I demanded, my voice shaking. He stepped forward, his figure blurring at the edges, like a reflection in disturbed water. You don't need to know. You never did. The darkness in the pit surged, thick tendrils twisting upward, clawing at the edges. The walls seemed to close in, the charcoal drawings writhing, their faces contorting in silent screams. It wasn't about keeping them out. It was about keeping you in. His voice twisted, a low, inhuman rumble. His face stretched, the skin peeling away, revealing a dark, empty void. The darkness surged, the tendrils lashing out, twisting around his figure. His mouth opened wide, an endless, black void spilling out, the whispering chorus growing louder. I ran. My flashlight flickered, the beam swallowed by the darkness. The hallway stretched, twisted, the walls closing in. The whispers followed me, a suffocating wave of sound. I burst through the back door, slamming it shut, the key twisted in the lock. I didn't look back. I sprinted to my car, throwing myself inside. The sky was almost black now, thick clouds churning, the golden sunlight gone. I jammed the key into the ignition, the engine roaring to life. I floored the accelerator, gravel spraying beneath my tires. The gas station shrank in the rearview mirror, a dark, twisted shadow against the storm-choked sky. But as I sped down the highway, I saw them, the figures, pale and twisted, crawling from the fog that spread across the road. Their faces pressed against the glass of the gas station, then turned, their hollow eyes following me. My phone buzzed again. I glanced down. A new message. You broke the rule. You can never leave. The sky darkened completely, the thick fog rolling across the road, swallowing the world. The headlights barely pierced the mist, shadowy figures shifting just beyond the beam. I gripped the steering wheel, my pulse pounding, the dread clawing at me. I had escaped the gas station, but the darkness, it was already waiting for me, and the road never seemed to end.